this morning as we continue to dance with the expectations that we have. Did you notice how I expected you to get up and sing and get up all my expectations? Listen for these ancient words. Thank you. Yay, that worked well. From the 4th chapter of the Gospel of John, the Samaritan woman said to Jesus, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask a drink of me, a woman of Samaria?" And from the Sufi poet Hafiz, competing religions are all basically contestants in a beauty pageant, and religion that can make your own beauty most known will win your heart most respect. Friends, this is ancient wisdom and holy word.
Thanks be to all that is wise and holy.
All creation is wisdom and holy word.
All creation sings the wisdom of God.
Hallelujah.
Oh, yeah.
So, I was 25. I was a seminary intern working full-time in an inner-city church, and I was out one Friday night with the youth group leader. Now, Neva had taken me to her favorite bar, a dark dive with neon signs, a pool table, sticky floors, and a live band playing 70s arena rock. We danced, my new leather-clad friend swinging her blonde streaked hair in sensuous circles, while I sort of pogoed around in front of the bass player. During a dance break, we sat down with our beers. And just in a moment, "Hey, ladies," a red-faced, yellow-haired drunk about our age stood swaying over us, not in time with the music, just in an effort to stay upright. "What are you two pretty girls doing here all by yourself?" Neva said, "We're not by ourselves. We're with each other." Undeterred, the boy plopped down and leaned toward us. "You come here often?" We practiced our icy, condescending stares. As the guy began talking about himself, the two of us exchanged glances, meaning, what's the quickest way out of this? Back to the dance floor? "So what do y'all do?" slurred our self-appointed date. Aha. Now this was the question that I dreaded on airplanes next to talkative men who thought that my chosen profession was a reason to spend the next 2 hours telling me why they had stopped going to church at age 13. The question I dreaded even more on nights out as a single woman, wondering if ordination was a sure ticket to never having a date again. But this night I jumped at the chance to answer. "I am a minister," I said, drinking my beer. His blurry eyes swam for a moment, taking in this information, and I expected him to sort of scratch his head and move along. But instead, he suddenly sobered up. Enraged, he jumped up from his chair and put his hands on the table and glared at me as if I were a demon in need of exorcism. He declared with conviction, "Women are not meant to be preachers of the word." Thank you. So astounded into silence, I sat back while he raved on. "The Apostle Paul has said that women must keep silence. No woman is allowed to teach a man. And in the church, men have authority and women keep silent." Well, he could quote scripture while drunk. I'll give him that. "It is an abomination before the Lord." And he backed away and continued to mutter more promises of damnation in my general direction, waving his glass of beer at me as he went. Clearly, his expectations of what he might find at the bar that night had not been met. When we're dancing with expectations, we may find ourselves offbeat if we can't hear each other's music. Now, the problem with taking a line about women's silence from the Bible and thinking that you've settled some kind of ancient question is that you have to completely ignore the way God behaves in all the other parts of the Bible. For instance, in the Hebrew scriptures, God uses all sorts of women to get the messages to Israel. Miriam, who was a military leader, as well as the sister of Moses. Shiphrah and Puah, who were I was going to say doulas, but midwives who refused to kill the baby boys like the Pharaoh said, and so Moses got to be born. Rahab, a foreign prostitute who helped save the Israelite spies. Deborah, great judge, military leader. The witch of Endor, who foretold the death of King Saul. Esther, the young beauty queen who saves the Jewish people, and so on and so forth. In the New Testament, in addition to the expected Marys, there is Anna, who was the prophet who recognized Jesus in his infancy, and Dorcas, Priscilla, Phoebe, Euodia, Syntyche, all leaders in the early church. The list goes on. And then there's a story in today's gospel about a Samaritan woman at a well who gave Jesus a drink of water. And the two of them end up alone chatting. Now, this woman is suspicious of a Jewish man's motives, speaking to a foreign woman, and he hints that he is someone that she should get to know better. He says that he can offer her better water than the water in her well, and the conversation turns to theology, and before his disciples return with his lunch, Jesus has suggested to the woman that he is the Messiah, which is something he has not said to anybody else, even those most close to him. So, a woman was the first recipient of the news that Jesus is Messiah, and then she shares this news, making her what? The first Christian preacher. How do you like them apples? So, not only did Jesus choose a woman, but a Samaritan woman. Samaritans and Jews, you may recall, did not get along. Think, I don't know, Stacey Abrams and Brian Kemp. UNC and Duke basketball fans. And not only did Jesus choose a Samaritan woman, but one that had already gone through 5 husbands and was living with a 6th man, but hadn't bothered to get married. Female, foreign, wrong religion, questionable sexual ethics. None of these qualifications seem to bother God in the least. I'm going to have to get my water. Thank you. Still, this woman at the well, and notice we don't know her name. Many women in the Bible, we don't know their names. Women's names are often erased from history. Is one of my favorite biblical characters. Mostly because of the 6 men she's lived with, honestly. I mean, almost as good a track record as Liz Taylor. And in fact, since Samaritan woman at the well gets a little tedious to repeat, let's just call her Liz. So, most scholars will say that Liz met Jesus at midday rather than early morning when most respectable women would be gathering their water, leading to the assumption that she is disreputable, sexually unclean, or maybe just not accepted among the usual female cadre. I think maybe she just didn't like waiting in line, or found the chit-chat annoying, or liked to sleep late. But for the sake of argument, let's go with disreputable. So we've got Jesus talking to this disreputable Samaritan woman, and the conversation is a little reminiscent of who's on first. So Jesus starts, "Give me a drink." A drink for a Jewish guy from a Samaritan gal? Are you kidding me? If you knew about my living water, you'd want what I've got. You've got water that's better than this well. Well, no offense, mister, but you don't even have a bucket. Your water leaves people thirsty again. My water quenches thirst. Oh, is that so? All right, well, give me some of your stuff because I got to tell you, my feet are killing me from carrying all these buckets back and forth. Go get your husband. I got no husband. True, you've already had 5 of them, and the guy in your bed last night was not wearing any rings. Oh, I see. You're one of those prophets, aren't you? Well, prophet, my people worship up on this mountain. Your people worship down in Jerusalem. So tell me what you think about that. Your people don't even know who they worship. At least the Jews have knowledge going for them. But I'll tell you this, woman, mountain, city, it doesn't matter. What matters is spirit and truth. You think we don't know anything? Oh, well, I'll tell you what I do know. Messiah is coming, and then we'll know anything we need to know. You're looking at him. Now, at this point, the disciples show up with lunch. So Liz heads back into town, telling everybody that will listen the story of this encounter, and Jesus decides to hang out with the Samaritans for a while. Neither his followers nor the people of Samaritan were expecting that. Expectations. If either Jesus or Liz had behaved the way others expected them to, they both would have missed out on this moment of connection. Now, what does it mean that Jesus identifies as Messiah here? To be the Messiah came with a long list of expectations, and some of them contradicted each other. Peacemaker, warrior. But to attach himself like that to that name meant that he would be dancing with some serious expectations. And probably nowhere on that list would be that he'd announce himself to a disreputable Samaritan woman rather than the righteous Jewish dudes who were following him around. And as for Liz, whatever expectation she had of her life for her life at this point, I doubt if running into the Messiah on his lunch break and becoming his confidant was one of them. If they'd each danced only with the expectations that others might have of them, they would have danced right past each other. And yet they chose to dance together. Her gender didn't matter. Her religion didn't matter. Her sex life or social standing didn't matter. What mattered is that she was another human being. What mattered is that we all really long for the same thing. Yeah, even the dogs long to have our thirst quenched. Maybe Liz went through 5 husbands thirsting to be treated with respect, with affection, with kindness. Maybe she went to the well at noon because she thirsted for solitude, away from the bustle of her community life. Or maybe she thirsted for connection with the world beyond her little village, and so she hung out there waiting for conversations with passing strangers. Maybe Jesus spoke to Liz because he thirsted to hear from someone outside his little Jewish bubble. Together, they discovered a thirst for connection, for something more lasting than physical satisfaction, more reliable than wells or husbands. Together, they noticed a thirst for truth, for spirit. God is spirit, Jesus said, and those who worship must worship in spirit and in truth. Not this mountain, not that city, not this gender, not that marital arrangement. Spirit, truth, only that. Only that. Dancing with expectations. It's something all of us do. The expectations from our families, from our friends, from our social status, whether high or low. I bet every person in this room today can think of a moment when you had to choose between meeting someone else's expectations and following your heart. Sometimes the hardest expectations to deal with are the ones we place on ourselves. And sometimes when things do not go according to our expectations, our first instinct is to bail out, say, that was never going to work anyway. So here we are, gathered as people of faith. What expectations does that bring? Does having faith imply its own set of expectations? What does God expect of us? Does that question horrify you? Or does it give you hope? Amos answered it. What does God require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, to walk humbly with your God? Jesus said to Liz, Spirit, truth. Seek those. In this summer of returning to in-person celebrations, each of us brings some expectations of what that means. Will it feel like it used to feel? What about the music? What kind of gifts? What kind of energy? How will we all dance with each other's expectations? With loving kindness and humility? With gratitude, as Meister Eckhart reminds us, with carbonated holiness, as St. Anne Lamott says. Jesus said, not this mountain, not that city. Spirit, truth. The thing is, it's easier to go to a mountain and say, this is it, or to go to the city and say, this is it. This is how we do it. This is what it's supposed to look like. This is how we've always done it. To journey into spirit and truth is slower, deeper, has more detours. It can't be found by following someone else's list, even Jubilees. It requires each of us to settle into a place of quiet and trust, of humility and hope, of believing that a common vision can emerge, will emerge, when we can set aside our anxious expectations. I'm working on that one. And remember that we are all part of one vision, one source, one power, one love. Sometimes our expectations get crushed. Sometimes we get more than we could have possibly expected. But it's often true that if we expect the worst, we'll find it. How much better to expect goodness, expect joy, expect excellence, expect love. Even if some of our expectations get disappointed, we'll have spread some good energy along the way. Our Lord Jesus lived each moment drenched in divine love, dripping with the juiciness of it, swimming in the sea of it. So even if he was looking for love in all the wrong places, he kept finding it anyway, because he brought it with him. What if we all expected to be drenched in divine love? Drenched. Expected to find love everywhere we looked, even the less lovely places, even with the difficult people. What if we all expected the love boat to carry us along? And what if we expected to dance with big love every time we hit the dance floor?